Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to episode 20 of The Filibuster. I can't believe it's been 20 episodes so far. Sadly, Matt Hansen can't join us today, but he's in our thoughts. We love you, Matt. So I kind of had to think to myself, who am I going to get on for this episode? So I thought I could get Tristan, I could get John, but I thought I would get someone different for a change, a bit of a new voice. And I picked my beautiful girlfriend Lauren to come onto the show today. We're going to now kind of turn the filibuster into the Scottish nerd nuptial for a change. So yes, Lauren, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Yes, Lauren, you're a bit of a geek as well, aren't you? So do you want to tell people a bit about your geek credentials? Because everyone will be probably secretly judging you at the other end.
Yeah, I'm a super geek. I love anything science. I'm a massive Harry Potter fan. Love Harry Potter to death. Star Trek, obviously. Star Wars. Anything Professor Brian Cox says is amazing. Other than that, just a bit of everything, really.
That's excellent. Like, that's how we kind of met, was through kind of geeky stuff, wasn't it?
Well, we met on Twitter because of our love of Star Trek, I think.
And you want to tell people what, like, our first date was?
Seeing The Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, like, the chance to see The Wrath of Khan is something I'll always take. So, yeah, I took Lauren on a date to see Star Trek Wrath of Khan, so she's clearly a good egg. So, yeah, so she's the perfect replacement for Matt Hansen this week. So we kind of were thinking, like, what episode will we talk about today? And we kind of, like, you can't ignore kind of what's happened in the past week, that the world really feels like it's kind of in flames just now, that it feels like you look around the internet, you look at your homes, workplaces, and everyone's kind of down in the dumps. There seems to be a real sense of hopelessness. And for all of us, a lot of the times we talk about that we go to our kind of film loves, our passions, when we're feeling down and depressed. And it seemed like the obvious choice this week was to watch Star Trek Beyond. So we decided we were going to watch that on Friday.
I think it's such an uplifting film. Anything Star Trek's always got an uplifting undertone. So I think it was just the best thing. And I hadn't seen it since the cinema anyway, so I really wanted to watch it again.
Yeah, like Star Trek Beyond, I think all kind of Star Trek is, you think of it in the 1960s and the parallels between the culture at the time and the culture now, that Star Trek in the 60s was this show where people together of oppressed minorities, people that didn't feel they had a home, where the world was kind of divided by politics, by race, could kind of live together. And now we kind of look at probably what it was like in the 90s when we were kind of growing up with Star Trek, and the 2000s, and thinking, well, what was it like in the 60s? We're living in more enlightened times. We are living on the Enterprise now. Everyone, in relative terms, is living happily ever after. And now it kind of feels like we are back in the 1960s of what Star Trek was produced in, do you think?
I mean, that vision that Star Trek has, that everyone just lives together.
I think I kind of took it for granted that Star Trek's vision was kind of gone, that we'd reached that enlightened time. Things weren't always great in the world and there's problems, but I looked around the world and thought, we all kind of get along, and, there are kind of minority issues, but we seem to be doing better now as a society, that we don't necessarily look at people with kind of their skin and think, oh yeah, they're oppressed, or we've got at war with the world. And I think that was me being perhaps naive.
A little bit. I think, yes, I kind of want to say that in these times people get on better, but recent things that have happened, because I think that's kind of went back a few years. I think definitely with obviously Trump and Brexit and possibly Marine Le Pen getting voted in France, so we just need to wait and see what happens with that. But you just need to think of how good it can be if we all just work together, no matter what we look like, who we love, etc, etc.
Yeah, like I said, it kind of we did a Star Trek Beyond podcast when it kind of first came out. This is kind of a bit of a slight retrospective through a prism of Star Trek Beyond's message of hope. And I said that kind of Simon Pegg and Dung Young, when they wrote the script, it was kind of like almost ahead of its time, that this was kind of before Brexit kicked off, before the Trump campaign probably really did kick off. This script was coming together, and they were talking about a group within the kind of old Federation that wanted to go back to the old days, that they had to fight and learn through hardship and issues of pain of what it was like to survive there, and that we can't break bread with our enemies anymore. And its message of the Federation that we think of hope was outdated and wrong to kind of Idris Elba's character. And Kirk and the crew are fighting to defend that and always prove them wrong. And I said at the time, I was like, it's predicting a lot of what's going to kind of happen, where it's kind of going in the world. But I thought it was kind of pure science fiction. I thought, yeah, it kind of is going to touch on some of the themes we're seeing in the world today. But I didn't think it would actually turn out to be so true, that we had the good guys that haven't really won at the end of this mission.
Yeah, I kind of get that as well. I think, obviously, like you were saying, the writing started before all this happened. You kind of think the world is going in the right direction, and then certain things do happen. So I think we've got to look at the message that Star Trek has, but the message that Beyond has as well. Like, things might not be perfect, but you can always count on like your close friends and stuff like that, and to get through the worst and weather the storm and things like that. I think that's what I took from it anyway.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that's one of the main things I took away from it kind of at the time, and kind of viewing it again, really kind of the first time since everything kind of kicked off in the world, that it's so comforting to watch this ship of minorities, of aliens, of people from all around the galaxy coming together and standing up for what brings people together, that they've got this alien that's trying to tear it all apart, strip everything from them, and they still won't be beaten, that they will stand up for each other. And there's so many just beautiful moments and scenes that kind of really sum that up. And I think that Star Trek Beyond is probably the most relevant summer blockbuster this year, really. Like, a lot of the other ones have either been kind of pretty awful, what they've dealt with has been kind of very generic. I think Star Trek Beyond's message is very, on point for 2016, and while it may not have lit the box office alight, its message, I think, is going to really endure more than perhaps any other Star Trek film. Yeah,
I think especially when you've got an unstoppable force like Kral. You've got obviously the crew of the Enterprise working together, and then they find other races like Jayla to work with them, and it's just that whole working together. You can defeat almost anyone, so that's what you take from it as well.
Yeah, I think one of the main things I kind of viewed it with this time was that there's a scene where they're on the bridge and they're evacuating, they're getting onto the Kelvin pods, and there's Sulu, key figures of kind of the 60s, having a Japanese officer on the ship, and he's making sure all these different officers of all this different colour, skin, and race are getting away to safety. And it kind of puts a little tear in your eye seeing the minorities coming together and getting to safety, that no man's left behind. And it's not just like, I think Star Trek too often was largely extras were all kind of white guys, white men, white officers, some white females. Obviously they had restrictions on budget, for example, but like Star Trek Beyond and the Kelvin-Timeline movies have had a real diversity in the crew, and that's a really lovely image. It's over so quickly, but you see it, just all these people coming together to flee to safety, and it's a beautiful moment.
Yeah, it's not just different aliens, different like alien races, it's different races within the human race, which I found like a really liked in this the newer Star Treks. You do get a lot of different races. It's not just completely whitewashed with white men and women, which I really liked.
Yeah, and I think like the message I think we really are learning from kind of Star Trek Beyond is that we all have to work together, that there are people that are going to tell us that we have to go back to the old ways, we can't break bread with our enemies, that's what Star Trek was always kind of stood against. That we think of the 1960s, we had Russians on the bridge, so we had a Japanese officer on the bridge, and the actor was someone that was put in an internment camp because the Japs couldn't be trusted in America at the time. That we kind of see parallels again, that when they cut to the 90s, the Klingons almost represented more of the Russians in Star Trek Undiscovered Country and Worf on the bridge, that the old enemies are now our new friends, that the walls came down between the Klingon Empire and the Federation, and we had that thing. And then it was that kind of 90s where kind of through the politics that we thought we were more enlightened, we had a better time of it. And now Star Trek's kind of images again is relevant, that now we have this enemy that's telling us we can't break bread with our enemies, that we're not family, we're not connected. What doesn't make us stronger, we'll all be pulled apart as individuals, that we can't count on individuals, and he's very much proven wrong.
Oh yeah, I think breaking down the boundaries is definitely a big part of Star Trek. When you think you can't, just basically what you said there, when you can't think you can't work together, Star Trek always breaks down those walls, and there's always part of that wall breaking in each story that Star Trek has.
So kind of looking back to, you were saying this is the first time you've watched it since the cinema. I think I went to see it 5 different times, that I naturally couldn't stay away from the cinema to watch Star Trek Beyond. What were your kind of favourite moments, your takeaways from it, outside with that, the kind of the relevant message? What scenes kind of stuck with you? What kind of favourite lines, character beats? Was there anything from your kind of, obviously, Star Trek history that really resonated with you?
Yeah, well, I can't afford to go to the cinema 5 different times because I don't have a cinema pass, but I really, really enjoyed the Bones and Spock dynamic in Star Trek Beyond. I love those two together. I ship them so much. But other than that, I really, really enjoyed Chekhov as well. Like, everything he does is just brilliant. These little noises and little looks to the camera and eyebrow raises and things like that. You really kind of saw that coming through in this movie. It was just, I really, really enjoyed it. Enjoyed it more the second time round, I think.
So what is it you ship about, like Kirk and Spock and Bones? Why do you ship them? Like, I was saying it to Tristan the other week that I'm not into kind of fan fiction and shipping. Why do you ship characters?
I don't know. I really, really enjoy thinking like on another alternate universe that they might be together. I think because they argue so much, and it would just be hilarious that if they just got together, and I think they work so well together. But
you've written a few Harry Potter shipping stories in the past. Have you written one about Spock and Bones?
No, not yet. Maybe in the future.
And you were saying there that, you ship these two guys, but there is the Star Trek's first gay couple is in this movie. We have Sulu and his boyfriend, who's actually one of the writers of Star Trek Beyond, Doug Young. What did you make of that? From you're really versed in the kind of the LGBT community, and you've got so many gay friends. Has there been kind of any reaction online? You follow all these pages, was it Pink News and so on, that, well, I kind of know of it from the geek perspective, a bit of fallout there. What has the kind of been response, or has it been kind of, that was something that happened within that kind of community? Yeah,
I think, that's just part of it. Is the overall consensus, I think. I mean, I consider myself to be part of the LGBTQIA, etc. community, but the fact that Sulu had a husband, boyfriend, whatever he was, and it was just almost just like an afterthought. Yeah, that's his husband, that's their daughter. There wasn't any big zooming in or anything like that or any big deal made of it. I think that was the best way it could have been done. It's just one of those things that happens in this universe that's why it's so good. These things are just accepted. But yeah, I think.
Like where we spoke about it on the show in episode before, that it's always good to have just kind of representation there, and it's not a big deal. It's just something that's there, and we obviously know we're going to get a gay character in Star Trek Discovery. Brian Fuller's been very clear on that.
Yeah.
What was your point of view with the kind of the George Takei fallout that he said they should have invented a new character? Would you prefer that there was a gay character, a brand new one on the ship, kind of what they were going to do with Lieutenant Hawk in Star Trek First Contact? Or are you happy that it was someone that was in plain sight all along, and we just assumed he was straight, but he's actually just gay? What was your take on that kind of fallout?
I like that whole, we just assumed he was straight, but it just happened to be gay. I really like that aspect of it. But I think there's always room for improvement. There's always room for more LGBT, especially female representation, or even bisexual representation, because I think especially in major movies, especially, I think bisexual erasure is a big problem. Like, you see the gay characters a lot. Not as often. You see the lesbian characters, but you don't really see someone who just happens to like both. I think that could be a real improvement. Yeah,
so that's something that you really want to see, probably maybe like in future Star Trek movies or Star Trek Discovery.
Oh yeah, but just the same, maybe not the same way that they did with Sulu, like it was never mentioned kind of way, but just as it is with any other straight person, it's just there. It's not the only thing about them.
You were saying there as well that Chekhov was a highlight of the movie for you, like all those little things. and kind of eyebrow raises and everything like that. What was your kind of reaction looking back? You know, now that we went into Star Trek Beyond, and it was quite an emotional thing on that kind of opening night. Especially, we watched one film after another. And it was hard not to watch. For me, obviously, I saw it 5 times. It took quite a few times before I could look at it and think, that's Anton Yelchin. Well, that's just Chekhov. Whereas pretty much the first few times for me, I was like, that's Anton Yelchin and he's dead. And that's really sad. And every little performance and beat he had, like anytime he turned to the camera and smiled, like your heart was kind of breaking within the cinema. Like with you, with the kind of, this is your second time, and now it's been, you know, a good few months now since we kind of lost him. What was your kind of, were you still watching it thinking that's Anton Yelchin? What was your kind of, you know, your feeling?
Yeah, I was watching it thinking that's poor Anton, and he's now gone. I didn't really know Anton from any other movies apart from Star Trek, so I didn't know his range or how good he was, but I can see from obviously what Lee's told me that he was a brilliant actor, and you can see it in Star Trek Beyond as well. He's so natural and in front of the camera, and it's just such a tragedy that he was taken so young. But yeah, I still feel emotional watching any of the Star Treks that he's in and seeing him.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we were kind of talking about the other ones there. Like, I you know, we've kind of watched Star Trek 09 and Star Trek Into Darkness a few times together. Like, what do you think of like, kind of going through, say, like Star Trek 09 and then Into Darkness? What do you think of the trilogy? Like, starting with Star Trek 09, what's your kind of thoughts on that, and then kind of Into Darkness?
Yeah, I mean, I love them all. It's Star Trek. At the end of the day, I'm going to love it, apart from Insurrection. But yeah, Star Trek was brilliant. It was new cast, new kind of timeline, all that kind of thing. It was great to see in the big screen in IMAX when it first came out. Into Darkness was great. I don't know if I enjoyed it more. I think I kind of enjoy them both the same amount, but I think Beyond trumps both of them just a little bit, even if Into Darkness has Benedict Cumberbatch in it. But, you know, I really, really think Beyond could be the one that trumps it.
Why do you think, why does Beyond trump the other two?
I think the best aspect of it was the characters' relationships. They went into that so much with obviously Kirk and Chekhov and Bones and Spock, and even with Scotty and Jayla on that planet. Like, it was just so, I think they just went into it so much better, and you kind of learn to love the characters more and in a different way as well. And obviously visually it looked amazing, I think, as well, and obviously the costume design was amazing. Everything about it.
Yeah.
I think.
Like, obviously Into Darkness had its critics, and we've got a few of the critics on the network. Tristan's probably the biggest critic of Into Darkness. We've debated that many times. I always remember that opening night, and I was raging at it. There's actually a podcast out there where 4 or 5 years ago I podcasted with a bunch of guys I knew. I spoke about Into Darkness like a day after seeing it. I was like, wow, really annoyed. Why did they do that? That's stupid. That's annoying. I was in full denial mode going into Star Trek Into Darkness that it was going to be canon. I refused to believe. I was like, oh, of course it's not. It'll be Gary Mitchell. It'll be something like that. The day he the image leaked of him in the black uniform, I was like, there you go, idiots. It's clearly not canon. I was really pro Gary Mitchell or something along those lines, that Cumberbatch was not going to be canon. And on the day when it was announced, I was like, well, in the cinema when he went, my name is canon, I was like, oh, Jesus. I was not happy, and it took me a few times to kind of get over that, and I still think that, I can get over its can. I still find the can part annoying. I think the film kind of falls apart when they get to kind of the back onto Earth and Spock just goes around punching him. That's kind of like, it's a bit stupid. I think up until then it's unbelievable, and spoke about the live experience that lends itself to Star Trek Into Darkness so well. What were kind of some of your favourite bits of the first two movies? Yeah,
Star Trek, well, Into Darkness, I think the critics do have a point, but I liked the whole Khan bit as well, and the parallels with the Wrath of Khan. But
wait a second, you liked them?
Yeah.
Why did you like the this is like a first, like this is like Tristan will be listening to this and he'll want to know. I'm now curious as well. Like, why do you like? I don't like the canned parallels. So I'm curious to know why you like the canned parallels.
Because they can do a parallel if they want to do it. And I think it needed it, because obviously Benedict Cumberbatch had revealed that he was Khan. I don't know, I liked the kind of role reversal when Kirk was in the radiation chamber and Spock came and rescued him, and that part of it, I really enjoyed that bit. But I really love Zachary Quinto as Spock, and I think he really, really did such a good job, and I think he lived up to that. I mean, imagine having to really do that scene, that famous scene with Spock in the chamber and having to recreate that. I think he did such a good job, and I really, really, really like Zachary Quinto. And he did it really well. Yeah, I kind of get the whole not liking the parallels thing, but I really enjoy this crew, and I think they got it so right with all the characters working together. I think you can't not like it just on the kind of actor level. I think that's my kind of opinion of it.
I think J.J. Abrams' best legacy is the cast. Like, you see it with Star Wars, he nailed an amazing cast there. He just can do it, like Lost as well, that he can pick actors out of like a bundle. One thing we spoke about when we were watching the movie was the Scottish line, you can't pick it. Was it you can't break a stick in a bundle or something like that? Like, I hadn't heard. My granny never said that. Did your granny say that?
Yeah, I've heard that before. You can't break a twig in a bundle. That's the saying that we had. But yeah, I've heard that before.
Do you think he said lassie a bit too much?
Yes. Scottish people don't really say lassie. It's a kind of an old thing that people say lassie. I don't really hear any my friends or any older people saying lassie very much.
No, absolutely not. So, like, you're kind of more from kind of Scottish neck of the woods than I am. Probably people listening to this will think you sound more Scottish than I do. Like, what's your perspective on Simon Pegg's Scottish accent?
It's got better. It has got better. I think in Star Trek it was a bit iffy. But he's got a Scottish wife, is he? Yes, he's got a Scottish wife, so I think she's been giving him the pointers. I think the best part with Scotty and his accent was in Into Darkness, when Kirk's trying to communicate with him and he's in the bar and he opens it and goes, "What?" That's nailed exactly what happens on a day-to-day basis in Scotland. Well, with me, anyway.
Yeah, I hear that all the time and all that sort of stuff from you. So yeah, like, you kind of give the Scottish stuff like a big thumbs up from the Scottish. You know, it's so many actors really make a mess of the Scottish accents. It's just like the kind of parody. There's been a murder.
It's not bad. It's not the best I've heard, but it's not bad, I think. And I love Simon Pegg. He's great.
So what else did you pick up from your like second viewing of Star Trek Beyond that you maybe forgot about, or the pressure of opening night that kind of, switched over from you? What did you think? A little Keeler, Kevin not kicking around in his pants? Like, what kind of was your things from the second time you thought, oh, I forgot that was in it, or I never noticed that before? I don't know. There wasn't much I took from the second viewing that I didn't really pick up in the first viewing. I think it was just a more rounded kind of experience for me the second time around. So, like, with that, you were saying that we're kind of like looking beyond now, that's kind of Anton Yelchin gone and he won't be replaced. Like, do you think Jayla will become a member of the crew? Would you like to see Jayla on the bridge? I would love to see Jayla on the bridge or in any capacity in the next movie, because I really, really enjoyed her character. I thought she was spunky. She had a lot of attitude and things like that. So yeah, I would really, really like to see her again. Yeah, like one of the parts that I always think kind of stands up is the beginning monologue with Kirk, where he talks about kind of things feeling episodic. And I think that's a really great moment kind of in Star Trek that we don't often see, like being on a spaceship being boring. That I can imagine being claustrophobic. You're just kind of kicking around on a ship for kind of months on end. No ships, no new encounters, anything like that. It can be so episodic, and I always love that moment where he opens the cupboard and it's just like the one uniform, and it reminds me of like Hey Arthur or something like that, where he opens up and he sees all his outfit that he wears in every single episode. Yeah, and I think that's a good, when he made that point, it was really kind of poignant. I think people don't realise how vast space is in every direction. I think on a mission like that, a 5-year mission, you're just, most of space is nothing, so the chances of them even meeting anything or anyone remotely interesting is so remote. I think it's also a good kind of modern day take as well. He kind of deconstruct it that he talks about with Admiral Paris that, you know, it's so easy to get lost out there without kind of direction. You know, is that kind of a thing for life these days, that so many people kind of, you know, we talk about now, that don't have direction, don't have a place to go, a fixed location. You know, some people are looking ahead and things are looking kind of bleak and grim, and they don't necessarily have a place in the world, they feel. Do you think that's something that kind of Kirk's message will resonate with as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, a lot of people, even me, like, there's a lot of times where I don't feel like I've got direction in my life. You kind of just coast along and you don't have really any real point to go to. But I think when he was making that point, I think the rest of the film kind of points to who you go along the journey with that really matters, not really the destination. So I think that was kind of what I was taken from it.
I think it's a beautiful message, and the Star Trek thing that you want to go. I think that's why kind of Yelchin's death really hurts, because we've been with this crew for 7 years, which is the same length we've been with the Voyager crew, the Deep Space Nine crew, and we'll get a few more years out of them yet. And it feels like we've lost someone on our journey with this cast, that when we kind of go back in a few years' time to the cinema, someone's not going to be there on the bridge, someone's going to be kind of missing, and that hurts, that we've lost someone too. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, like I said before, I really, really enjoy this crew. I think the casting was amazing, and with Anton not being there, it's going to be big boots to fill.
It's like when you watch I've never seen a crew kind of love each other as much as this one, that you hear about the Next Generation crew that they loved a bit of hijinks. The Deep Space Nine crew were famously really stiff, and they didn't believe in having fun. Like Michael Dorn found a bit of a culture shock. You know, Voyager crew loved a bit of hijinks. We see the guys always seem to meet up for a meal every few months. You see that on Instagram. But I think with this crew, I think what kind of makes it a bit sad as well, you see all those, was it Dub Smash videos?
Dub Smash videos, oh, they're so funny.
You see Yelchin, Pine, Quinto. I think John Cho leads the band really with the Dub Smash videos. That I think there's YouTube compilations of them all.
Yeah, there's hundreds. Yeah, I think it is really sad when you see the Dub Smash videos with Anton in them. But this crew, they do get on so well, and it'll be greatly missed.
So what we all kind of only really know about Star Trek 4, Star Trek 14 going forward, is that there's no Justin Lin, he's not going to be returning. Know that it's going to be involving Chris Hemsworth coming back as George Kirk in some capacity. That's all we kind of know. What's your take on Chris Hemsworth, joining the Star Trek crew again?
I'm interested. I don't really know what's going to happen with it, but yeah, I trust that they'll do a good job with it. But you just need to wait and see. Yeah,
I'm very curious to see where it's going to go as well. I can't get my head around what's going to happen or what they're going to do. It's going to be it's going to be quite surreal seeing Chris Hemsworth now as a famous actor. Whereas anytime you watch Star Trek 09, you think, oh, that's Chris Hemsworth. Okay, but now then he'll be on the big screen, and it's oh, that's Thor. Yeah. It's the God of Thunder and Captain Kirk. It's a bit of an interesting mashup.
Yeah, I think it will be. Yeah, you can't really see Chris Hemsworth and not see Thor. So yeah, it'll be interesting what they do with his character to make it more interesting. Yeah, so we'll kind of wrap up a bit of the Star Trek Beyond thing, and we'll just have a wee kind of brief thing about Star Trek, just why it's maybe so wonderful. Why you've got this kind of opportunity to tell people why you love Star Trek. That we were recently at the Star Trek Europe event, and we had some pretty awesome access. We got press passes, and we got to meet the cast and crew, and have a bit of a blather with them, and go to these talks and stuff. What's on this, because the kind of 50th anniversary kind of comes to its conclusion, that I've said it a few times, I think it's been really underrepresented that Star Trek's 50. You look at the James Bond 50 years celebrations a few years ago, and it was amazing. It was all over the place. What's your thoughts on kind of Star Trek at 50, kind of being at Star Trek Europe, Star Trek Beyond? Where do you feel Star Trek's going? What's some of your kind of favourite memories? What did you take away from Europe? I know that's a lot of questions, but what's your takeaway from all that? Star Trek's been a big part of my life ever since I was younger. My dad and I used to watch it. My dad and my sister and I used to watch it. My sister's a big Star Trek fan as well. Voyager's one of her favourites. The Next Generation's her favourite, and then Voyager, I think I'm right to say. I'm not that big of a Voyager fan. Deep Space Nine's my favourite. But yeah, it's been a part of my life for years and years and years. And I think the main reason I got into it was obviously watching it with my dad, but I think just it's so the message of hope and maybe one day living in a society where money doesn't really matter, where everyone gets along is such an idealistic view that you can't help but want to live in that in the future. But yeah, with the kind of underrepresentation of Star Trek 50, it's like, I don't think many people would have known it's been 50 years since Star Trek. It's been so rubbishly advertised and things like that, but we had such a good time at Destination Star Trek Europe, just meeting all the stars, the press access, like having an anxiety attack because there was around so many celebrities at the one time. It was just so good, and finally meeting Terry Farrell, which is one of my dreams. I'd always wanted to meet her. She was such a babe. What was the other questions again?
I think you kind of covered them all there. Like, why is Deep Space Nine your favourite? It's obviously my favourite too. Why is it like a favourite for you?
I grew up with The Next Generation, and that'll always have a place in my heart. But I came to Deep Space Nine quite late on. It was something I didn't watch at the time. I watched it on DVD later in life. I think just the characters, I think I'm really, really into characters. I can kind of see that now. But especially Garrick and Bashir, and it was really, really good, and the kind of non-episodic, the way it was shot was really good as well. I think it just worked so well. The writing was amazing. I just loved it as a show, and I think it's really good for people that aren't really into Star Trek. I think people would really like it as a show as well, so I think it's really broad. Appeals to a lot of people.
Like on our shelf, your shelf, there's like a framed Star Trek item. Do you want to tell people what that is and about that famous story?
So I went to the Scottish premiere of First Contact. It was in the Glasgow Showcase Cinema.
It's the first time that's been mentioned on the show. First plug for that. So we'll be expecting a wee check in the mail from Glasgow Showcase Cinema.
My dad is the king of blag. I think he managed to blag tickets, I think we went to the premiere. I don't know how he got in anyway. I can't remember. What year was it?
It was 2000. It was 1996. It's 20 years old this year.
96. So I would have been 14 or 15 at that time. I went with my dad and a couple of friends that were Trekkies at the time as well, and my dad managed to get us into the screening of it. We were right down the front. I managed to meet James Cromwell, Alice Kriege, get their autographs. There was Klingons dressed up, and at the time it was just amazing. I'd only been to one kind of convention before. It was the one in Edinburgh, the small one in Edinburgh, but seeing these stars up close, and First Contact is one of my favourite films of all time, never mind Star Trek films, but amazing.
Why is Star Trek First Contact one of your favourites?
It's brilliant. I think the whole message of hope as well, and I remember writing in my teenage diary after going to see Star Trek First Contact that it's just, you feel so small in the universe, and I think it's such a humbling but also cathartic experience when you just realise that you're only a tiny, tiny speck, a tiny pinprick in the whole vast universe. I think Star Trek First Contact really hit home for me with that kind of aspect of it. We're just a tiny small planet that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things when it comes to other alien species, and I like to think that that's actually happening, that people just pass us by because we're, just human beings and we're just not good enough yet. Yeah,
it's a beautiful message. I think the guy who does the official Star Trek podcast, the day after the Donald Trump election, went, only 47 more years till First Contact, only 47 more years.
And can I just mention that score?
Yeah, the score's amazing.
That score.
Yeah, you got to hear it live last year, didn't you?
It was amazing, yeah, in Albert Hall. It was I've got it on my iPod and I hear it, that First Contact score. It was one of the pieces of music that I would really like to walk down the aisle to. It's just so beautiful. I love it so much.
Yeah, I love First Contact too. I missed out on seeing Generations at the cinema in 1994. I was a bit too young. Too young to have seen anything before that at the big screen. And I remember the day we were going to go see Star Trek Generations, I got diarrhea and wasn't allowed. We weren't able to go to the cinema that day, so I had to wait until '96 to see Star Trek on the big screen. And me, my friend Colin, and my dad took me to see it after school. I was 9 years old, and my dad took me like 35 miles to see it. And I always remember just sitting in the dark, old Odeon Cinema in Aberdeen, and like just the lights going down and that theme playing, and then it was just to see an Enterprise on the big screen was just utterly mind-blowing. And if I could, we always get the chance to see Wrath of Khan. It's a pretty recurring film on the circuit here in the UK in some capacity, but to see the other Star Trek movies is next to impossible, and I'd love to see First Contact on the big screen again.
I'd love to see it again as well. But talking about going to the cinema, I remember seeing Generations in the cinema with my dad as well. Like, I know Generations I find it quite a cheesy film, but I still really like it. I think it was the first Star Trek film that I went to see in the cinema. It was really, really special just for me and my dad to go ourselves. And the scene where the sausage section crashes onto the planet, like, I remember like grabbing the sides of the cinema seat and my knuckles were white just in that whole scene, and that's what I take away. That's my memory of that, seeing that in the cinema. It's just such a great scene.
Yeah. I obviously missed it because I got an upset stomach that day.
And you were too young.
I was old enough to go. We were going to go. I was too young to see any of the other ones. I was too young for Undiscovered Country. I missed out on Generations at the cinema, and first time I got to see it was when we were on holiday in Spain, and they sold pirate VHS copies, and I was able to buy a copy of Star Trek Generations in a Spanish pub. And we took it home back to Scotland, and I remembered watching it and just like, oh yeah, it wasn't the greatest quality, but it was Star Trek Generations. I had a hard copy of it, and I think it's a kind of underrated film in the respect that I think the whole Nexus stuff's nonsense. I think the whole bridging the gap thing's nonsense, but I love the Picard plot with that. The fact that I find it utterly mind-blowing that the Star Trek Next Generation's first experience on the big screen, and it like has this amazing plot line about Picard dealing with the death of his family in a fire, like his male legacy, where you're going to go in life if you don't have like kids. That's kind of unbelievable. Like, you wouldn't get that in the Kelvin movies or probably any other Star Trek movie, and like that kind of blows your mind that a whole plot line in Star Trek Generations is about death, despair, loss, and legacy, and that's pretty powerful stuff. I think the scene with him and Deanna Troi in his quarters is one of the best scenes in Star Trek history, and very overlooked.
Yeah, definitely. Like the whole theme of loss in that film. But I like the Nexus. Like, I don't know. I think you need it for the film, but also I think it's quite, when you think of the Nexus, it's basically just paradise for whatever that person thinks is paradise. And I think it's quite, I think nice is the wrong word, but it makes you think what would be in your Nexus kind of thing. I think it's a thinking point of it, and I really like that fact where you could think, right, there's this thing that exists where you can just go in it, and you can see why Soren wanted to be there so badly. And to be honest, you sympathise with Soren, because to be honest, who wouldn't want to live in their dream for the rest of their life? And I think I like the Nexus because of that. It's so powerful that way.
I find that a bit surprising because you're like me, you're quite a staunch atheist, and to hear you talking about kind of going to your dream place and a dream that, do you not think there's like, it's, that idea that is essentially kind of heaven?
Yeah, it is. Well, I think...
Or do you think it's like a scientific heaven? Well,
it actually exists, so there's your difference. So it does exist for those people, and obviously the people that have been in it, Soren's that desperate to go back that he thinks, obviously it's an anomaly, so it's not technically real, but it's real for him. It's real enough for him that he wants to just live his whole life in the Nexus. So, yeah.
Like, I don't overly have a problem with the concept of the Nexus, but it's more just the fact that, he's got this most convoluted plan to get into the Nexus. Just go fly your ship into it.
Don't get me started on the fact that how he does it with the whole, that's a different story.
Yeah, it's a bit silly, that aspect of it. I think it's a very underrated movie for some of the plot lines and what it deals with. I'm a Data fan, and I find him kind of unbearable to watch in Generations. You're a huge Data fan.
Well, I'm a huge Data fan. Like, I love Data, and I've written fanfic about Data and lore as well, but yeah, I really, really do enjoy Data. I think it's the writing though. Like, I think they wrote like certain lines for him that just didn't work with his emotions chip and things like that, it was just a bit too cheesy. Like I said, it is quite a cheesy movie for me compared to First Contact. But yeah, like I think the more data the better for me, really.
What kind of fan fiction did you write about data and lore?
That's for me. That's for me to enjoy.
Are we talking X-rated stuff here?
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't really know where you go from there. So, like, I can probably wrap up now. I've managed to wring extra time out of you, obviously, to kind of cajole you into doing this. So I was
I've had to have like a couple of tequilas to loosen myself a bit.
Yeah, like this is the first time I've podcasted, and like the stench of tequila has been. I think you don't get this when you're dealing with Matt Hansen. It's I know when I've dealt with.
No, he's too professional.
He's too professional. You're just like, I've had to get a Scottish drunk on to ramble on about X-rated fan fiction to fill in. So, thank you so much for coming on, Lauren. What would be your final thoughts on, in the kind of wake of despair that people are feeling and kind of lost? Like, what do you think Star Trek can offer people?
I think Star Trek can offer people that there's always hope for the future, and the fact that if we all work together, accept people for who they are, and just try to coexist with each other, I think that's the thing that everyone can take away from Star Trek.
Yeah, that you can always hope that we're maybe heading to that second star to the right and straight on till morning. It feels like it's a long way.
That's Peter Pan.
Well, actually, that's the quote at the end of Star Trek 6 they use. I know. Like, he goes, heading captain, second star to right.
I know.
So we're off to Neverland, but in a Star Trek context. So yeah, if like people wanted to, this is like the bit where you get to feel like a proper podcast person. So if people wanted to talk to you on the internet about your thoughts on Star Trek Beyond and try and get you to share your fan fiction, where can people find you on the internet? I'm
mostly on Instagram. You'll find me on Instagram. It's Kalis_suicide, and I'm also on Snapchat and NX-74205. Not really on Twitter that much, so it'd be pointless. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Yeah. Well, I am on Twitter a lot. You can find me at Lee_Nostromo. And yeah, let us know your thoughts on kind of Star Trek's message for hope in this kind of dark and midnight in the world kind of feeling we've got just now. And yeah, we've got like 7 days worth of podcasts now on the Nerd Party. So we've got the normal original Nerd Nuptial on Monday. Then we've got Aggressive Negotiations on Tuesday. This is a real test for me to make sure I get this on a winner. Then we've got Filibuster on a Wednesday. Then on Thursday, we have Punch It, Writing in Pop Culture. On Friday, we have SETI Alpha 3, a Star Trek podcast where they don't need to be drinking tequila to talk about Star Trek. On Saturdays, we've got Great Shot Kid, all about the creators of Star Wars. And on Sundays, we've got Missing Frames, cinema that's been missed by people, where people can catch up on films they've never seen and share their views and opinions on it. So 7 days of Nerd Party action, but this is the most kind of drunk one of the bunch. So yeah, thank you so much for listening, and hopefully you will find hope out there in the final frontier. And yeah, let us know what you think. So live long and prosper.
Yes, live long and prosper.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd